Just let me know when you're ready. Ready when you are. Just let me know when you're ready. Okay, we're live.
Okay. Thank you. It is Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission special meeting number 1, which is for election of officers. And I need to have a motion to approve that agenda, I assume. Let's see here.
I approve.
Do we need to do roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just being backwards here. Yeah, go ahead. Roll call, Sue. Thank you.
Okay. Ruth Hader?
Here.
Mark Ingram?
Here.
Sue Hubbard is here. Marianne Griffin?
Here.
Lorraine, sorry, I'm messing up here. Cramond?
Yes. Here.
And this is what's bothering me because I don't remember your last name, Rod.
You are going to have to speak up. I don't hear a word you're saying.
Okay.
And I've got my hearing aids in,
Okay. So Rod, what is your last name? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Gray, like the color, A-Y, G-R-A-Y.
Okay.
Okay, and welcome, Rod. This is just sworn in, Rod's first meeting. That's good. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay.
And we have a quorum. We're missing Carissa. She's not here. So, I'm sorry, I'm fumbling here for... So being a special meeting, we just have one item on this agenda, and that is the election of officers. I need a motion to approve that agenda.
I so move.
It's Mark. Have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Lori? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Hey.
Motion passes 5-0. Agenda is approved. Okay. So then we need to decide, and I know in the past I've seen it done multiple ways. The slate for all the officers can be done as nominations and then voting, and then the voting counts as the thing. I don't think you need a separate motion to thing, and you could
To
do
vote?
not to vote, and then you take the full slate as a motion after that, and then say it. Does that sound right? I'm trying to look it up quickly, but I'm not being very quick here.
Yeah.
Somebody remember?
I'm not sure that I did just look at the bylaws, and what they said was that people needed, someone needed to approve a candidate, so motion for candidate, it didn't need to be seconded, and then there could be more nominations, but then after that there would be a vote that did need to be proposed and seconded.
Okay. Carissa?
That's my bag.
Carissa is here. Chris, have you met Rod? Okay, good.
I moved over so I could hear. I can't hear a word.
Okay, then let's open the floor for nominations. There are 4 We've got chair, vice chair, secretary.
This is 3.
That's it, sorry,
Just
3.
three.
Wrong board, 3. So do we have nominations for chair?
Yeah, for the purposes of, I'm just going to say that, for the purpose of some consistency, which we have not had in a while, I
Right.
would like to nominate Ruth for a second term as chairperson.
I second.
Yeah, it actually doesn't need to get seconded.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
We'll do the whole slate
Like,
at
but-
the end.
Awesome. Okay.
Okay, I accept, I will do it again.
Oh, good. And I nominate Sue Hubbard for the secretary.
Yeah, I think we're just doing chair right now.
Oh,
No, you want to do the vote for each one first? That makes sense.
I think that's...
Let's do that. I know we've done it differently every year. When I went back
Yeah.
and looked, there's different
Yeah,
procedures every time we do it.
It just said they needed to get voted on. It didn't say if it was one,
At a time.
each position or...
Okay. Okay, well, let's do the chair vote first then.
aye.
So a motion to,
Oh, we do have to have a motion for that?
No.
You can put forward, because there may be multiple names, so you can put forward a name, it doesn't need to be seconded. But then, when you have the vote, it needs to be put forward as a motion with a second.
okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Anybody else interested?
Therefore, then make a motion to vote on the chairperson for Ruth for chairperson.
It's Mark. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's Carissa. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So that makes Ruth chair. Okay. Now we can do
Vice President?
vice chair?
Who's currently the vice chair?
Nobody.
Nobody really.
Yeah, it
We
was,
don't
it was,
have
it
one
was,
now?
I
it
would-
was,
I
it
would
was,
actually
it was
like to
Brand, but he
nominate
went until he left.
He's,
I-
I mean, he's on top of everything. He's got time in.
He knows the financial stuff. I would second that
Right.
if I needed
Sorry,
to.
Mark.
If he's willing.
I'm willing.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Anybody else want their? Okay, do I have a motion?
I so move.
I second.
Lori, Carissa, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Mark Ingram is vice chair. Okay, secretary.
I nominate Sue Hubbard.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Mary Ellen, thank you. Mark, okay.
Is Sue Hubbard still,
Oh.
are you willing? And
Oh, yes, are you willing? Yes, let's ask her.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would speak up if I wasn't.
It's a hard job. So,
Okay, so now we have a motion to vote for Sue. That's Lori. Have a second?
Second.
Carissa, discussion? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Sue Hubbard is secretary again. And to repeat, I will be chair again. Actually, I didn't have a full term last time. I think I started midway. Didn't I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Ruth is chair.
Yeah, no, I think
Oh,
you...
you were full.
You were
Was I full?
You did
Okay.
full, yeah.
I know it's hard to believe a year's gone by.
I
but
know,
yes,
I know.
yes.
And Ruth is chair, Mark is vice chair, Sue is secretary. Okay.
One thing that we really need to do, I know we did it last time during this same meeting, was the Finance Committee, because right now I'm the only one on the Finance Committee, and therefore I'm the only other person besides the chair and the vice president who can sign checks. So if I'm on the Finance Committee, which is wonderful, I love doing that, and I'm the vice president, that we need one more person on the Finance Committee who can get on the signature roster, because right now, there's only 2 people. I'm about to be out of town for 3 weeks, and we're going to desperately need somebody else on the signature
Can I
roster.
ask what's entailed in being on the finance? I mean, I'm happy to help in any way I can, but I would not consider myself to be a financial genius or
Well,
even a financial.
Really, what we're doing, what I'm doing is monthly auditing the reconciliations, dealing with any kind of issue that comes up, and there's not a lot. I mean, most of everything we do is out of QuickBooks. It's readily available. So really, the reconciliations, which I would continue to do, but the biggest thing also is to have, maybe you're looking at the financials ahead of time, make sure any questions are answered before they get presented to here. And so far, that's really been a lot. I would continue doing the reconciliation, so it wouldn't be a big job for anybody. But the biggest thing really is to be also a check signer for, once we have the new director hired and on board, that person will be able to sign the
Oh, of
checks.
course.
And then Ruth or me or the other finance person can also do it, because they require 2 signatures. So it really, anybody else can add anything to it. There hasn't been a lot more to that than that.
Well, if I can help, I'll do it. If somebody else wants to take it on.
Yeah,
The special meeting has to be just for the election of officers.
Okay.
So we can't really make that part of this special meeting, but maybe by the next meeting to have it in our official minutes, because that's what the bank requires.
yeah, we have to definitely get that done
He's
this
leaving in
week.
3 weeks.
I'm leaving Monday for 3 weeks, so
Okay.
we have to get another person able to sign by Monday.
By Monday, okay. Okay, well, we'll finish the special meeting, then I'll say something about
Okay.
that, okay? The motion to adjourn this special meeting?
I so move.
Lori, Mary Ellen, second. In discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. The special meeting about election of officers is adjourned at 4:44 PM.
That was very efficient.
I didn't like it like that.
The bank, I did talk to them about the procedure to make sure I understood, because I want to make sure I have it down for that. For their signature thing, they will need a copy of our minutes from the actual meeting. So like if the next, whatever meeting we have to decide who's on the signature card, if we have a special meeting for it, if we have it in our next meeting, they just need minutes from that signed by the chair.
Yeah.
They don't have to wait for the next meeting for those minutes to be approved, like we approve minutes from last meeting. They just need the ones from that meeting, that particular meeting. So as soon as we produce the minutes from that meeting, we can bring it to Andrea, and she'll set it up, and she can do an e-sign, whatever she has to do.
Excellent.
Okay. So, Kim is setting up a special meeting for us for, what'd she say?
Thursday,
Thursday, thank you.
5 o'clock.
And that's going to be for the,
Thursday, 5.
will you be gone? You want to Zoom?
And what's that special meeting
I'm going to
for?
be, 5 o'clock I probably can't do, but I'm going to be in Fayetteville. I'll figure
We'll
it
figure,
out.
well, I'll
figure
be,
something.
get in touch with me and we'll figure it out later. Okay.
I have to be on a Zoom with it because I'll be at work.
Okay.
And that's for what's that special meeting for?
That one is for the executive
Hiring.
session for hiring.
Perfect. Okay, good.
Can we have
Right.
another special meeting then to discuss finance committee at the
Yes,
same
it
time?
does.
Yeah, that's what, I can add to it. I was going to say we can add another one to it
Steve.
if I tell her tonight.
But yeah, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so special meeting number 2. It is 4:46 PM.
Yeah. So the agenda says that the meeting starts at 5. Does it matter if we're early?
That's fine. Unless there are other members of the public that,
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear.
Oh,
it.
I was just asking a question because the agenda and what was announced to the public says the meeting starts at 5, and we're just about to start it at 4:45.
Oh, okay.
And
We have
I
a
was
second
just
meeting.
asking if that was okay.
Is that okay?
I think it's okay. Because we'll still be here at 5. If anyone were to show up, I suppose we could.
We can always back up if they want to talk about something we've already talked about.
We'll figure something out. We'll be in workshop by then, and we can figure it out. Okay, special meeting number 2. Is to approve the financials, right? Need a roll call for it, for this special meeting, Sue?
Oh, well, sorry. sorry.
No, okay, I think we should do another roll call just to be official.
Yeah, no, we should. You're right. Ruth Hager,
Here?
Mark Ingram,
Here.
Robert Gray,
Here,
Mary Ellen Griffith, Laurie Cremond,
Yes, I'm here.
and Clarissa Litherland.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum, and
So is mine. We should
the
put it
agenda
right.
is to approve the financials. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Ms. Mark?
Second.
Mary Ellen, second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. The agenda is approved. Now, has everyone looked at the financials? Everyone know what they're,
Scanned them.
I looked at them, I wouldn't say that I had delved deeply.
and this is just for the, let me find the official.
Is this the budget or the year-end? Year-end.
This
Or
is
month-end.
year-end.
Year-end.
This is year-end financials for the year-end P&L. That's
Okay.
really all it is.
Which we reviewed to some extent when we were going through the budgeting process.
Exactly. We'd gotten through a good portion of
We
it,
did,
and then we
actually.
just needed the last couple of weeks, really, or
Yeah.
even.
Right. 'Cause when we did budget, we weren't actually through with the year yet. The very end was,
Right, there were
So-
some.
so this is the
like
actual-
a few weeks.
Yeah, so
True.
Okay.
this is basically that last few days of the month and done up, so.
I have a question. Mark, have you already reviewed this then as part of your committee?
Yes, basically, obviously, it's a format, and this is basically spit out of QuickBooks based on everything that's been entered all year long and submitted through the bank, and through, so it's basically, there's nothing really in here that wouldn't have already come out, if that makes, So it is basically, I think you push a button and say, run P&L for this date to this date, right? It's really that simple. So there's not a lot for me to audit in this, unless you went back through. And it's sort of why we do the reconciliations every month, because every month what I'll do, just to give you an idea, I take the bank statements and the reconciliation report, and I randomly select maybe 10 transactions, pull the checks, and see that the check and the backup document for that check matches the dollar amounts on the statements, and check for say at the end of the month, we had outstanding checks that hadn't come through yet. Then I will look the next month to see if those outstanding checks showed up on this period's stuff. So that I audit it through the year, making sure that, and you obviously can't do every transaction, but you do a random selection of things. And then on the deposits, the same sort of thing. Check the deposits. Where do they come from? Where's our documentation behind the deposit? And it's all in file cabinets. And so then I initial each of those things, sign off on the top of it. But again, it's all through the QuickBooks program. And all checks are cut through the QuickBooks program, and all the bank data is downloaded into it. So,
So that's a nice,
yeah, so basically, like everybody these days, where there'd be an issue with any of this, if anything looked outrageously out of whack. Like you saw all of a sudden that we had $2 million in revenue in March, and you're like, yeah, that's not possible. Obviously, there's a problem. But, but this,
so you would catch anything that,
yeah,
an error or anything?
we would catch, I shouldn't say that. I wouldn't catch everything possibly. The system would catch it. And in the last year, we spent a lot of time, Scott specifically spent a lot of time weekly on knowing every nuance to data that was going through QuickBooks, because we had so much issues in the year before with the chart of accounts. So with the new chart of accounts, it's much simpler. It's refined.
But we have control measures in place, because the person that's the bookkeeper/accountant is also the director, oversees what they're doing, and then we have you as a reconciliation.
Absolutely.
So there are multiple layers of
And then on top of that,
controls.
there's the state auditors that audit. So
Right.
like, there's several layers of that, exactly.
Right.
And so what we try to do really from the finance committee is ensuring that they are doing the reconciliations every month, and that everything is matching up, because you would know really quickly. I see the balance from last month at the end of the month, any deposits or checks written, any interest we've earned, what the new balance is, and any transfers. And then also QuickBooks also has a sort of an audit report that says who signed in, at any time, when anybody signed into QuickBooks and made any transaction. So we have visibility into any transaction being made by whomever signs into it.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of accountability,
Yeah,
basically,
there is.
that we didn't have previously.
Correct.
I
Yes.
have another question. I'm not familiar with this. What does restricted general income mean and unrestricted? Could you explain that?
Yeah,
What's the
I
difference?
think, I mean, you guys may be able to explain it a little better, but I can quickly take a stab at it, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Some of our tax dollars that we receive from the Parks Department is restricted to only Lake Leatherwood capital improvements.
Okay.
So restricted funds are things, is money that can only be spent for a very specific thing. And the unrestricted is we can spend it on anything with the Parks
Yeah,
Department.
there's an ordinance, number 2176, that discusses the 1/8 of 1% tax, and that is the restricted account. And it gives very specific language, fairly specific language about how those funds are to be expended. The 1/4 tax goes into the general account. So what we do is when we're working on Lake Leatherwood, there's certain things that we will pull from that 1/8 income, and then we're just doing general operations, that comes out of the 1/4, as well as our revenue stream. Now, so we're very careful about what we pull from 1/8 to focus on what this says we can focus on, and then the rest kind of can cover anything.
Thank you.
And
So
that's why
this
they're
could
separated.
also
by the
be
way.
Steve, I
restricted
actually have a
income,
question.
grants or specific funding.
I actually have a question about that.
designated.
So if you look at this year, we only spent a very small portion on capital improvements of what we took in. And that makes sense to me because we don't want to just have to spend everything in the year.
Right.
We've got some big projects coming up with the dam crossing and
The buildings.
implementing the assessment from the lake, whatever is recommended there. But I just wondered about accounting from that, how that's kept track of as to what eventually needs to go to be spent on Lake Leatherwood capital improvements. And I particularly wonder because sometimes we make decisions based on money that we have in the reserve account, but if a portion of that is earmarked for Lake Leatherwood, that would be kind of important information for us to know.
That's the challenge of the label of reserve, and because your general funds are coming into that account, but we pull from that account to, when we have, say, payroll, we'll pull amounts from the general fund, or from one of the money markets into the general account, so that, and then we pay payroll, and then payroll goes to the city who pays the payroll. But the way that the system works is that you only have, let me see if we can back up here a little bit and get my thoughts collected on how this system works. The question you're asking is, how do we keep track? So
Yes,
Scott
yeah.
will, on his last budget, he would put in there at the bottom of the byline, he'll say, this much money, for example, for an upcoming watershed assessment, this much money is set aside for that contract. So he will incorporate that into the budget so we know that that money is obligated. Now, we have additional future things that we would like to look at that we did not necessarily, or the commission did not approve for the budget. Those are out there, but once they are approved, then they go into the budgetary process, and then they get allocated. And then you know that you're going to pull from those monies to address that. So then you can look at how much you're dipping into it. My only concern with that is that as a reserve, I can see it if we decided to say, we're going to maintain X amount as a reserve. And then if we get into that, then that's a cause of concern maybe. That is a reserve to me. And the rest really tends to flux based upon the operating conditions of the park. So at times we'll have high expenses and increased costs. So we kind of dip into it as we go through the year.
Yeah.
So you don't always know exactly how much those money markets are going to have, but they do stay at a fairly stable level.
Yeah, no,
They're separate.
but I'm saying is, so the money this year that we took in for Lake Leatherwood capital improvements that we did not spend, is there a way that is earmarked so that we know at some future date that does get spent?
We are looking-
Because we
right.
can't just take it at the end of the year and mix it in with unrestricted. It's still
No,
restricted,
we do
right?
money market accounts.
Oh, okay. So it's in a separate
We
money
have a
market.
total of 4 accounts, and they're separated by the money market sort
Okay,
of
okay,
reserve,
good.
and then the checking for each of
Yeah,
those.
so it is kept separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And we also we're looking at that because we haven't been spending out of that very much. And probably over being concerned to make sure we do it correctly, we were pulling a lot from the general fund side.
Right.
And now we're looking
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and saying, wait a minute, if we're doing this, that's for the park, for LLCP, we should be pulling from that restricted account. So we're looking at that and saying, okay, yeah, these things that we before might have been over here, we're saying, no, 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 they belong over here, and that's what those funds are for. But we always have to comply, of course, with this ordinance.
And your question is very, very, very valid. I mean, I absolutely get what you're saying, and yes, we should be looking at that a little bit closer, because when we do come up with anything that we're doing, whether it's the dam or the lake or fireworks or whatever the different things are, it's very specific what we can spend that money on.
Right.
And we need to make sure, actually, when we're approving these things, that we delineate, like, this is from the general fund, right? Or this
Right.
is from the 1/8 tax fund for the limited fund.
Right.
We do need to be really careful with that.
Right.
I agree.
And
It needs
Nikki
to
has
be very
started-
clearly separate. But I do know what we did last year a lot was what Steve was saying. A lot of things would get paid out of the general fund, that could be used for anything. And then if they went back and determined that that was a qualified expense for the other fund, that they just transferred the money back over. So basically paying them back.
Right, yes.
And so there was but it's very well documented what they did in that,
Good.
and for that.
I have a question. When they make donations, where does that go under?
When they make,
If donations,
it'd be under,
Doesn't
it would
that
be under
matter?
income, probably miscellaneous.
But it does depend on whether the donations have restrictions.
True.
Because some donations could be designated for a specific
Right.
improvement
Sure.
or whatever. And in that case, I think it's treated different than just a regular donation.
Yeah, so you might see other income unrestricted, other income restricted.
that would be like donations, or?
Yeah, it could sometimes be sales of a vehicle, or, it could be, we had several different, we had auctions last year. We sold some of the old signs from the park, and,
Right,
any
is
monies that
that
come from
ever
that.
spelled out?
Well,
Probably not to that detail. It's somewhere, the backup data's
Okay.
for it. but-
and in the past, of course, we've changed things to make them more clear now. There were sometimes line items specifically listed for some specific donations. Like there was I can't remember, it was a specific one that had to do with the springs and water quality, et cetera, and that one was specifically donated for specific things done to the One Clean Spring project or something like that. And that used to have its own line item until it got used up a long time ago.
Okay.
So, but only at that time did it show up by itself. And I don't even know if we do that now with the QuickBooks being so much more streamlined. It might still come under miscellaneous, but in the past, we had line items that said it when there was something that specific, but that was large. It was a large amount, too, so that was
My
different.
apologies for being new.
No, I don't mean that.
I'm still asking questions.
I'm old, and I can't remember half the stuff anyway, so it doesn't matter. You look it up all the time.
Yeah. I had another question just on the format of this document. So I pulled out what we approved a year ago, so the equivalent document, and it had a line item, well, actually several line items that related to payroll. And in the document that was produced this time, I don't see anything related to payroll at all, and I wondered if there was a reason for leaving that out.
There were a lot of, when they went through QuickBooks last time, and there were changes to the categories, a lot of that resulted, when I sent out that first budget for, say, 2021, you'll notice that, or the P&L for 2021, you'll notice that they had a whole bunch of canceled, deleted line items. And what happened is those things were then moved back into different line items. So there may not have been a capture of that particular line item in a field that would...
But it looked like you deleted every item related to payroll. It wasn't like you just collapsed things. I didn't see payroll. It seemed like every item related to payroll, so I wondered
There
where...
is human resources and payroll as a
Human
line item.
resources
Oh,
and
it
payroll.
is?
It's on
So
page
just-
2. Look on page, on the back.
Number 516.
If you look, it's 516, human resources and payroll.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay, I'm sorry, I withdrew my
Because
question.
I'm saying it has to have that. There's no way they could take that out.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it has to have.
And I see here, Steve did a,
Mark asked for a few things, and Sue, you asked for one item. You asked for a comparison 22 to 21, and that was the process of taking all those deleted items and saying, okay, where would those belong? And just by reading them, you can say, well, okay, yeah, that one belongs in this line item, the 2022 listing. So I brought those together and then did a comparison on the spreadsheet, and that isn't necessarily part of the report required. That's
Right.
supportive of our discussion today. And then Mark requested an actual versus budget for 2022. And so I ran that report. Now, that is just a pull from QuickBooks.
Yeah, it should.
So that's a straight pull.
And
I
by
don't have much
the end
influence
of
on
this
that.
year, we will have true comparable years, because we won't have any chart of account changes this year
You can do
compared to
your
last year. So at the end-
year-on-year
Yeah, we can
comparison.
really do true apples-to-apples comparison, where
So-
now there would be no way to really do it. Steve did the best, and it came out really good, but according to everybody, I wasn't here at the time, it was just all over the map. They'd add a new chart, a new line item on chart of accounts for every little thing, and ultimately, it was just gotten so big that they didn't even know what was there, so.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. And I just want to say, I saw some of those before the changes were made, and it was pages and pages and really hard to follow. So these are, I mean, both last year and this year are big improvements over what we
So-
used to have.
Going forward, when we do the sort of the review of the budget, do we do it on a quarterly basis, like, as a commission?
I think it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and we look at
No, we've always-
budget to actuals and forecast, just to make sure that we're not in a position where we under budgeted, we've overspent, and we think the forecast is even going to be more. That'll give us visibility much earlier on if we need to think about.
Yeah, yeah. The one thing to be careful with that is we don't necessarily, the money doesn't necessarily get spent equal amounts throughout the year. So a lot more may maybe get spent in the summer than in the winter.
That's why you have your forecast,
Right.
because that would be, I budgeted 10,000, I've spent 2, but I know I'm going to spend the rest of the 8. Or I budgeted 20, but I've spent 30, and I know I'm going to spend another 30 more.
That
just to get
hasn't been
thing.
how we've done our quarterlies.
What?
That has not been how we've done the quarterlies before.
just-
But I like the idea of the
Yeah.
information. The Finance Committee, I guess, could come up with a more formatted.
Yeah, I think
Regimen for that.
also for that, in line with that,
Mm-hmm.
as we, in our meetings, add something, they come to us for fireworks, for example, that we did not budget.
Yes.
I would like to see, on a quarterly basis, an updated budget plan that says, all right, now, this is what our budget looks like with where we took $21,000 that we didn't budget and put it in there.
Budget was 0.
Or if we go through this process.
Actual cost was whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then also, if we go through this process, for example, for tonight's workshop, where we go through the shuttle process, we have a lot of money in the budget to pay loans for shuttle buses, right? So if we somehow decide that's not what we're going to do, and we're going to take a different approach to that, then we need to adjust the budget revenue-wise and expense-wise to look at what that does to the budget for the year.
Yeah, and also to capture whether or not, so if we're doing something, we'd be doing it because there's going to be a business benefit and a return on investment. So if we think, we would have spent 20,000 and earned 10, but now we're not going to spend the 20,000 and we want to earn that 20,000, so we should be 10,000 ahead.
Right.
We should be doing benefits realization and tracking that those business cases and those things actually generate
I
the
agree.
income or the
And we
cost
also need
saving
to
or
look,
whatever that
for
we
me,
expect.
we need to look at, okay, these were approved budget line items, so
Uh-huh.
they don't automatically just go into now, you can spend it any other way you want to.
No, absolutely.
It goes into, we spend it, the budget is adjusted, and then again, if we need that money, we can do
Yeah.
it for something else. But
Yeah.
I just think it's really wise for us to watch it because, we did budget more than our revenue, expected revenue this year, taking some money out of our, I'll use the word savings, instead of reserve.
I like that, savings.
But I think it's a good idea for us to closely watch that, at least on a quarterly basis,
Yeah.
and make budget updates for anything that we do in that quarter that affects the actual budget.
Absolutely.
That's just,
Yeah,
Can
no, I
we
think-
add that to the agenda of either our next meeting or the one after that, the regular meeting? So
Yes.
that the finance people or somebody come up with or somebody,
Yeah.
come up with a
I
little.
built a new budget that Mark wanted that showed the fireworks in it, so that is ready for the next meeting.
okay,
Put
good.
a list
That
of what.
reflects the changes that were made
Does-
last time.
Does
Quick
the-
and-
excuse me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Does, maybe I ask you, Stephen, do you ever rent equipment and tools, or is everything just purchased? Is
We
that-
do rent. As a matter of fact, when we were doing glade restoration work, we rented a chipper. And on occasion, the team will have to go out and get some equipment, some heavier equipment to work a particular project.
Is there a line item under that, or is that,
I think there is it's either, it could be a rental, I don't know if we have a rental
I
item
didn't see any
there.
rental,
Pretty sure there is a budget item.
because that saves your money on buying equipment, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah.
We've discussed it a few times in terms of how would we make the decision to rent versus buy, and what's the right approach to take. And I think the shuttle discussion is one of those discussions around, does it, and also outsourcing. Does it make sense for us to do it ourselves? Does it make sense for us to buy it and do it? Or does it make sense for us to just have somebody else do it?
Right.
So we are having those discussions. If you have anything to add in terms of what's worked, for you, et cetera, absolutely. I do have a quick question on the forecasting. Can Quicken allow you to do a forecast?
Well, you can put in the budget, which is, we're getting into plugging in the budget to make sure that it reads correctly as we start going through the year. You can, the budget, from what I can see with Quicken right now, what it does is it takes what you budgeted
Yeah.
for the year, divides by 12.
And I'd want the budget not to be touched. So you've got budget, actuals, and then forecast is, this is what I thought I'd spend, this is what I have spent, and this is what I now think I'll spend, which is your forecast, different. So can Quicken do that, or would that have to be a separate?
No, I think what you would do is you would download
And then
that
add
and
it.
then add your own
Okay.
column.
Yeah, got it.
Just simple
Easier.
spreadsheet kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's nice to have the traceability, because then we look back and go, I thought I spent that, but actually.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
I didn't see any line item for rental.
I think it comes under equipment and tools normally.
Wouldn't that be the under and over $5,000 part?
I would think so. I don't know that we,
One of the challenges is this does streamline a lot, but then at times it's a challenge for the teams to come in and say, okay, where do I put this? And
Yeah.
so sometimes if you go through line items, you'll say, okay, this line item lines up, it goes in here, and this line item goes down here, and you look at it and say, well, why? Well, they both are close enough in their understanding. So I kind of hate to make a guide for the guide.
Right.
But at the end of the day, our biggest concern is making sure that we spend the 1/8 cent tax correctly. And the other things, they're in there, they're still budgeted, and then we start watching the forecast and things. And that's one of the things that I did want to look at closely and prepare for the next director is a budget burn. So you know how you're burning through your budget and what you're forecasting out to see, so that you don't spend too much up front when you probably thought you needed to spend something maybe back in the last quarter. So it's very important to not just use that linear or the divide by 12 approach that Quicken provides. So you have to be careful when you look at the numbers from Quicken, because it's a mechanical process that it uses.
That helps explain a lot.
Yeah.
and I know not enough about this stuff as I should, but it does throw things off for me mentally when I think about the revenue that comes in, because our tax revenue, though we budget what we think it will be, it changes.
Yeah.
When COVID first started, that was a big challenge to that, looking
Your
at some of those.
actuals may be more or less than what you budgeted.
And
Right,
we have
and
to be
some-
really,
always.
we have to be watching that.
Yeah.
And for example, just this, we were going back through the numbers and going through the spreadsheets, and I noticed that November, we did not receive the revenues. So we reached back out, and there was,
Right.
reached back out to the city, said, yep, and got that corrected. So this year, we have received the November revenues.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted to roll that back and say that was part of last year, you can't, obviously, because it was received this year. But if you wanted to say, how did you perform really against anticipated revenues, you'd have to take
Should-
that number and
Yeah,
then
you
Yeah, so
artificially
there
put it
needs
in
to
there.
be an adjustment for the books for
Yeah,
that.
there does.
Correct, yeah, to really show the performance for last year. Did better on the revenue side than what it reflects.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
the
great.
CAPC taxes, when they come in, then they go through the city, then they get to us. So there's
A
ones that
delay.
get missed, there are delays sometimes, so
Yep.
that gets checked. Any other questions? Okay, ready to make a motion to approve the the fourth quarter, what are these called? Financial
So
statements.
move.
Thank you. That's Rod. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Lori, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5, have I been miscounting? Oh, I had Chris, 6-0. Sorry, 6-0, motion passes, the financials are approved. Do I have a motion to adjourn this special meeting?
I so move.
I second.
It's Mark, Mary Ellen. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's 6-0, motion passes. We are adjourned. It's 5:13 PM.